From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. James Azar here with your Practitioner Brief. We've got a busy show today. A lot of stuff going on, and some of it is at the intersection of cybersecurity, national security, geopolitics, and so much more. It's really, really interesting. I'm going to paint a really fascinating picture. One that is sure to elevate the way you discuss cybersecurity with your C-suite going forward. So stay tuned for the entire show. We are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Please make sure to subscribe to our show and find us on your favorite podcast listening platform. There you can get all the latest stuff. I've got some really cool episodes coming up. On Monday, we kick off Veteran November in a very, very special series. Every single day I'll be posting, on top of all the other content we do, a 15-minute interview speaking to a veteran about their service to our nation. So you don't want to miss it. Definitely come check it out. And you can catch that on the CyberHub podcast channel or the CISO Talk podcast channel as well. It'll be double published in order for everyone to be able to get access to it. Now, before we do that, shout out to KnowBe4 for their support of the show. And tomorrow I'll have a special guest from KnowBe4 on the program with me, wrapping up this week as we wrap up National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. That's going to be very, very exciting. Good morning to Marcia, who's with us. Good morning to everyone else. Time, before we get into the news, to drink a cup of coffee or a Red Bull, whatever your beverage is, at 0900 hours on a Wednesday is. Mine is my traditional. I stick to what works. Double espresso. I absolutely love it. It's my thing. Whatever your thing is, I'm not hating. I'm all for it, boo-boo. Drink up. Coffee cup cheers. All right, let's get into what's happening with Adobe patching gaping security flaws in 14 different software products. Adobe on Tuesday released a slew of urgent patches with fixes for more than 90 documented vulnerabilities that expose Windows, Mac OS, and Linux users to malicious attacks. The security defects affects a wide range of popular products, including Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, and Premiere. In all, Adobe provided documentation on 92 vulnerabilities and warned that more than 60 of these flaws carry remote code execution risks. In total, of the 61 vulnerabilities that have been described as critical arbitrary code execution issues, 5 memory leaks have also been rated critical. You know what that means, folks. Get your Adobe patched. Auto-patching, it's really easy. Almost everything on here could be auto-patched. If you take a look at all the products here, maybe 1 or 2 couldn't be automatically patched. Everything else could be automatically patched. Turn on auto updates, let them patch on their own, make sure it gets done, follow up 24 hours later. If it's not done, force it, move on, lower the risk. Coffee cup cheers to Mr. James McQuiggan, and Marcia is drinking a Brazilian dark bold coffee. Oh, Brazilian coffee is so good, man. It really is. We'll move on to our next story today, folks. This one is significant because North Korea state actors are now targeting the IT supply chain. And what one might wonder why. Well, the Lazarus hacking group, who's been known as the North Korean kind of de facto headline APT, was observed by Kaspersky security researcher expanding its supply chain capabilities. Lazarus used a new variant of the blinding can backdoor to target a South Korean think tank in June after deploying it to breach a Latvian IT vendor in May. The first case, which was discovered by Kaspersky researchers, Lazarus developed an infection chain that stemmed from legitimate South Korean security software deploying a malicious payload. In the second case, the target was a company developing asset monitoring solution in Latvia, an atypical victim for Lazarus. Here's one thing that you guys want to keep in mind with when we talk about North Korea. North Korea's cyber capabilities and cyber threat actors are almost homogeneously connected to China. And their skills, the equipment, everything that they get comes from China. China and Iran are literally the only two countries that work with North Korea. And they use North Korea as a distraction in order to launch their greater work here. Lazarus used the same RAT, by the way, when they targeted cryptocurrency exchanges and related entities in the past. This malware helps do system reconnaissance, run arbitrary commands, and exfiltrate stolen data. The Lazarus group itself is a military hacking group backed by the DPRK and active since at least 2009. Some would claim they're behind WannaCry, and they are based on the forensics, but there are several more theories around that. The fact that they're going after IT supply chain, folks, just lets you know, start vetting your vendors effectively. And just because they're an IT vendor or a security vendor doesn't mean they're secure. Something to please keep in mind. Good morning to Christopher, who says, good morning to you, beautiful people. Good morning to you, man. Thank you for being here. And good morning to Bob Henderson for being with us as well. We'll move to our third story of the day. If China's not in the top list of villains, I don't know who is. So the FBI raids a Chinese point-of-sale giant PAX Technology in Jacksonville, Florida yesterday. Brian Krebs broke this story where U.S. federal investigators raided the Florida offices of PAX Technology, a Chinese provider of point-of-sale devices that's used by millions of businesses and retailers globally. Krebs has learned that the raid is tied to reports that the PAX system may have been involved in cyber attacks on U.S. and EU investigations. They're headquartered in Shenzhen, China. They have more than 60 million point-of-sale terminals in use throughout 120 countries. In an official statement, you see that this is part of an FBI, DHS, CPP, that's the Department of Customs and Border Protection, and also NCIS. Several days ago, Krebs on Security heard from a trusted source that the FBI began investigating PAX after a major U.S. payment processor started asking questions about unusual network packets originating from the company's payment terminals. According to that source, the payment processor found that PAX terminals were being used both as a malware dropper, a repository for malicious files, and a command and control location for staging attacks and collecting information. FBI and MI5 are conducting an intensive investigation into PAX. This goes on to show you how nothing that comes out of China is really innocent. Everything is part of a greater scheme and role of how China plans to continue to operate globally. Keeping this in mind, we'll stay tuned into this story and let you know how it develops as well. Good. We've got Tedious, who's with us from Poland. I hope I said your name right. Tedious, I really do. I'm sorry if I butchered it. All right. Iran is under a massive cyber attack, and every time these guys have something that goes, it's nationwide. It's nationwide because simply the government controls everything in Iran. So if you hit one point, it essentially is like a web, and everything goes down with it. It's like a tower of cards. So yesterday, Iran had a cyber attack launched against its fuel stations, and they only have one major fuel distributor in the country, and so all their gas stations were offline. That's over 4,300 and some odd gas stations. Iran has struggled to restart its Petrol distribution system after it was hit. The unclaimed attack crippled the country's system of government-issued electronic cards, which motorists use to purchase heavily subsidized fuel. The long queues have formed outside petrol station, angering motorists in a country already suffering under tough economic sanctions, and much, much more. Of Iran's 4,300 petrol stations connected to the system, only 220 have been reconnected in a country of like 80 million. That's insane. All right, so here's the thing. This is kind of A lot of people have said, hey, this is Israel. Well, not really. Okay. Iran is facing internal opposition. And this internal opposition could be supported by covert Western agencies who would like nothing more than an internal revolution to overthrow the current leadership of Iran. And prices are just, everything is so expensive in Iran. And so this is very significant, simply because this does not seem to be nation state. It in fact seems to be local because of the way this attack has gone through. So we'll keep an eye on this. I hope to be able to talk about this more tomorrow. I am getting more information on this. And I promise once I get all of this information, I will share it with every single one of you here. I'm waiting to get that last piece of information that'll help kind of put everything in there. Andrew says network segmentation. It's going to be big one day. Yes, it should be, but you wouldn't always think so. Here's the thing. Network segmentation is big when it's a private business that understands they need to serve a customer. Otherwise, when it's government running things, then who do they care? Like, what are people going to do? You've only got one option. And we'll move to this next one where spammers are using the Squirrelwaffle malware to drop Cobalt Strike. This is a new threat happening right now, where a new malware threat that's called Squirrelwaffle. So a nice animal with a good snack has emerged in the wild, supporting actors with an initial foothold and a way to drop malware onto compromised systems and networks. The new malware tool spreads via spam campaigns, dropping CACBot and Cobalt Strike. In the most recent one, it was discovered by the Cisco Talus group. Squirrelwaffle is one of the tools that emerged as an imitat replacement shortly after law enforcement disruption on the widely used botnet. And this is really, really important. When one threat group goes down, the leadership at the top that made the money may have moved on, right? They may have moved somewhere else. But everyone that's kind of was part of the network is still trying to make money. And so they're going to go back at it because they don't care about the risks at that point. They're still trying to make their dough and walk away. Most emails contain hyperlinks to malicious zip archives hosted on attacker-controlled web servers and typically include a malicious .doc or .xls attachment that runs malware retrieving code if opened. On several documents, the actors did use DocuSign's signing platform as a bait to trick recipients into enabling macros on their Microsoft Office suite as well. The contained code leverages string reversal for obfuscation, writes a VPS script, and executes it. The action fetches Squirrelwaffle from one of the 5 hard-coded URLs, delivering it in the form of a DLL file onto the compromised system. The Squirrelwaffle loader then deploys malware like CACBot or the widely used penetration testing tool Cobalt Strike. While Cobalt Strike is a legitimate pen testing tool designed for an attack framework to test an organization's infrastructure, it can also be used by cyber criminals to do just the same exact thing in a correct version of it, FYI. Squirrelwaffle also features an IP block list that is populated with notable security research firms as a way to evade detection and analysis as well. The threat actors leverage previously compromised web servers to support the file distribution aspect of their operation, and most of those are running sites running WordPress 5.8.1. So again, upgrade, patch, and upgrade your websites are just as big. And finally, Microsoft is warning about an uptick in password spraying attacks. State-sponsored actors and cyber criminals are going after identities with password spraying, a low-effort and high-value method for attackers, according to DART. That's the Microsoft response team. Cyber attackers aren't just looking for software flaws or weaknesses and open RDP connections. They're now going after password spraying. Although only 1% of those is actually successful, Microsoft has observed an emerging Iranian hacking group using password spraying against Israeli and U.S. critical infrastructure targets operating in the Persian Gulf. And so this is, again, Microsoft kind of detection and response team outlining 2 main password spraying techniques. The first, which it calls low and slow. A determined attacker deploys a sophisticated password spray using several individual IP addresses to attack multiple accounts at the same time with a limited number of curated password guesses. The other is availability and reuse. exploits previously compromised credentials that are posted and sold on the dark web. They utilize this tactic. They also called credential stuffing to easily gain entry because it relies on people reusing passwords and usernames across multiple sites. So something to keep in mind here. One way to do this is one, MFA, obviously, right? And not text MFA. By all means, try to use an app authenticator. That's always the preferred aspect of it. And take a look at making passphrases and not just passwords. That also helps as well. Folks, that's it for our practitioner brief today. We'll be back with a lot more tomorrow, and I'll have a guest from Know before joining me on the show. Until then, enjoy your hump day. We're almost on Friday, right? And we'll talk and see you all tomorrow. Till then, folks, thanks so much for tuning in, and stay cyber safe. Cheers.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.